Good morning. This is Rosemary with Good Journeys Tarot, and today I wanted to do a live about making a tarot card, why we make tarot cards, um, how we use cards that we can make, things like that. But before we get started, I just thought I would chat about some other things while we wait to see if anyone shows up. Um, you'll see I'm wearing my new hat. It was a custom hat from Blonde Swan. When I reached out to her, she was very happy to work on it for me. I'd been wanting a witch's hat and could not find one that I liked. Most of hers have feathers, and anything with a feather on it closes my throat. So I happened to be seeing these Tudor style hats that she had with the Tudor rose on them, and decided that that would be a really great icon to put on my tarot mage hat. Mage is the style of hat. There's actually a wizard hat that I like more, but it just looked like it would be too big on my head. And this was about the right size for me. So, one of the things I want to do, and maybe you guys can help me in the comments, is I want to add some of my pens to this side of the hat. Sorry, the mirror reverse thing is getting to me. To this side of the hat, the rose is on this side. And so one of the things that I knew immediately I wanted to add, and I want to be careful because I'm going to be putting holes in the leather, right? So whatever I put there is staying there and it's never going away. One of the things I wanted to put on there was the Ouroboros that I have here. And that is by Leviathan Artworks. I got that at a event I went to a while back. I mean, I actually purchased 3 pens together because it was cheaper than buying 2 pens. And there were 2 pens that I kind of wanted at the time. The other one that I'm pretty sure I'm putting on here somewhere will be this Tudor rose, which is actually the trans Tudor rose. And if you search for that on IG, you should be able to find the person who made it. I can't remember their name right off the top of my head. But even though it is a Tudor rose, I wanted to put it on here. The other thing I'm considering putting on there is my rainbow cats. Love my little rainbow cats. We'll see. I do have some other things that I had considered, and I think I've ruled out. One is this is the back of the Lost Hollow Tarot, this All-Seeing Eye, which is kind of cool, but I don't think it really goes with my hat or with my other pens that I'm looking at doing on my hat. So we'll see. I'm probably not going to put it on there. The other one that I considered was the Witch's Broom. And I considered these because they were different than the other pens, but I don't know if I want to put the Witch's Broom on there or not. The Witch's Broom actually was supposed to be a giveaway at some point because I got it as the extra third one to go along with the ones that I wanted from Leviathan Artworks. And then I had 2 other roses. One is from Pixel Occult. It's from another deck, but I loved this rose design. I did not like the deck that it was on, but I loved this design. But there's already going to be 2 roses on here. So, and this one was also a rose, also from Leviathan Artwork. But it's actually just the rose. So that's what I'm thinking about. And if you have an opinion, please do let me know. Um, well, let's hop in and let's talk about making a tarot card. So making a tarot card is pretty easy. You put some images on a piece of paper and there you go, you have a card. So why do we do that? Well, for many of the same reasons that we buy decks, right? We're looking for imagery that we can connect to and that's going to speak to us in a meaningful way, so that we better understand and grasp the tarot, that kind of thing. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you some cards I've made and talk about the uh, ideas behind the cards. Um, So let's start by looking at, uh, sorry, let's see. We're going to be starting by looking at some images that I previously created. So let me just go to that folder. Some of these are things which I created the images and then I thought this would make a really cool card. And others are things that I intentionally created to be a card. So, for example, this doodle, became a great idea for lovers, right? And this was one of my things that I like to do periodically. Is I will just draw a squiggly line and then I'll see what comes out of it. This was actually the second attempt at this. I actually have one that I like a lot better that I'm going to show you in a moment. Here is another one, which might be an oracle card. Again, it's a doodle that I did. It could also be the tower with the lightning there between the day and night, kind of breaking things up. This is a painting that is in progress, and I've shown this before on IG. I call this number 3, and it is actually a concept for the Empress. And so we'll probably see a blue sky in the background with maybe some stars shining through, though, as you can see, the sun is in the background, so we'll see how that goes. And then this card, which I called the Seeker, is an idea for perhaps a high priestess or the moon. It was, again, one of those things where I drew a squiggly line and then went from there. Now, these cards are actually from a project I did on Instagram where I took photographs from my life and from that I took or staged to try to create a tarot deck. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm close to completing it and looking forward to the day that I'll finish it. I think I'm around 40 or 42 cards in now. Some of them are images that I already had, which means that their quality varies. And some of them are some that I took with my current phone, which has the best pixel ratio I've ever had. This is a picture of my father as the King of Cups. This is probably my favorite photo of him. He has um, uh, grown roses for my mother since they moved into this house 47 years ago, almost 48 years now. And she has roses almost 9 months, 10 months of the year. It's really awesome. And so that was probably not my first choice for a King of Cups was my father, based on our relationship and his personality. But based on this photograph, it certainly reminded me of a King of Cups. This is the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man is actually was just a photo I snapped in my backyard. I thought, wow, this is really cool. And when I was thinking about the hangman, I thought, well, this caterpillar is upside down. And he is basically eating until he sacrifices himself to become something else. And really, hanging upside down, you get a new perspective. So all of those things led to the hangman. I just happened upon this Three of Swords. I'm back in March of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. I saw a group of buzzards feeding on a rabbit, and I tried to position it so you didn't see much of the rabbit, but you did get the idea there. And I have some other photos of them as well. To me, this was kind of an omen of things to come, and it was the closest thing I could think of to a Three of Swords card at that time. This is Five of Cups. This is me and my pug. It it was kind of like a sad moment. Something has happened and we're just a little bit gloomy. So I've always liked this photo. And so I turned it into the Five of Cups. Now, one of the things about this project, and you'll see my pets are some of the court cards because they just scream the personality, right? Of these courts to me, which was the whole purpose of doing this project, was so that I could take my understanding of the tarot and relate it to something every day, and thus expand my meanings and expand my understanding of the cards. There's my baby again, Stan Lee. And you'll see my dogs are completely different. One is a cups and one is a wand. One is just very active and crazy and energetic, and the other is sweet, loving, compassionate, and yeah. So this is Six of Cups. This is a card in RWS, which I want to talk about for a minute. That has always bothered me. Here is the card. And when I look at this card, it does not scream to me nostalgia or connection. To me, it's a weird card. It looks to me like there's a really tall child giving flowers to a really tiny old lady. And I've just never resonated with this image. It never really has spoken to me, mostly because I think that artistic work is not quite right. It could be the clothing that they're wearing or the proportions. I don't know. It's something weird about this card. So I wanted to find something that reminded me of childhood and of nostalgia. And so I created this Six of Cups based on toys from my childhood that I still have um, in my home today. I got them out of my mother's attic when she was cleaning it out to throw them away. And I thought that was a nostalgic image. Now, one of my visions for a Six of Cups card is actually from my childhood. We grew up on a river, and if you can imagine the river at its lowest, I don't know if you may have ever seen this, but rivers have sometimes sandbars in them where the sand and pebbles and things build up and the water's lower than other parts of the river. And we had a section probably about half a block long that ran by our house where the water during the summer would be between 4 and 10 inches. And us kids would go out and play in it all the time. The way our neighborhood was formed, it was supposed to be similar to a modern day HOA. There was a little park, and then there was a pier with a clubhouse on the river. And the clubhouse was never finished, and the pier disappeared. But there were always these concrete steps that came down the side of the embankment to the river. And so we would go down those stairs and get into the river. And that's the image that I always picture when I think of the Six of Cups now, of myself and my little friends splashing one another in that water with the stairs going up behind us, and maybe adding some cups along the shore, and two children, a girl in a pink polka dot bikini and a little boy in a blue swim trunks. And maybe you'll see some little fish and other creatures swimming in the water and that type of thing. But that's nostalgia to me, that image, that memory from childhood, and the idea of remembrance that this card invokes. And so, but I haven't found the right images to create that card. I definitely don't have the art skill to produce it the way that I want to. So it's kind of on my list, my part of my deck to be produced at a later date. There's one of my cats, the Queen of Wands. I just think she's gorgeous, which is why I use this image. The Queen of Wands often has a cat in it, a black cat normally, but Penelope has always just looked distinguished and lovely. So that's why I thought she was the Queen of Wands. This is actually a picture from my travels. I went to the Philippines for 2 years, and while there, I got to visit the Banawi rice terraces, which is one of the few wonders of the world that was not built by slave labor. This was built by farmers over time, providing for their families. And they've carved out these terraces inside into the side of the mountain to create rice paddies, and it's a gorgeous sight. I have a lot of images I took of this, but it was back when I was using a 35 millimeter disposable camera, and so I've taken photos of photos which weren't actually that great to begin with because of what was available at that time. But that reminds me of the hard work and the practice that goes into creating something grand, which is why I chose this image. This was an image I took at random one day, and when I got to strength, I thought, well, why not? Weeds growing through the cracks of the asphalt. I mean, it's amazing what nature can do. It is very strong, it is very resilient, and so it gave me a different perspective on strength. Some, like I said, are staged cards. So this was a staged card where I took 7 cups. I filled it with 7 different things, most of them food and beverage from my kitchen, some of them other things like we've got crystals in here, and we have some coins from the Philippines. We've also got some spell candles, some wine, why not? Funny story, when I originally took this image and posted it on Instagram, about a week or a few days later, I realized I had 8 cups in the picture. And so I ended up switching, taking one out and redoing the photograph. Trial and error, I suppose. This one was also staged. This is me and 2 of my friends who did tea and tarot regularly, and I just thought this was a great image. 3 people getting together and having a time together. So those are the ideas of some of the ways we might create cards. Such we may draw them, we may take photographs we have. We also might create collage. So let's look at a collage that I've done. One of the cards that I sometimes have a problem with is the sun. Now, I don't have a problem with the sun in interpreting it. I just don't resonate with the baby and the awkward looking horse or the red banner, right? And a lot of people say this is ugly little baby. I don't think it's particularly ugly. I just think it is disproportionate. It's another one of those artistic things that I think could have been better. But I do love, the sun. I love the sunflowers in the sun card. And so when I think of this card, what resonates with me in my personal life was when I was 2, almost 3. It's one of my oldest, probably my oldest memory. We lived in a rental house on a farm, and the farm spanned it across a highway. And on the other side of the highway was a barn and some fields of corn and some cows. And my father would go fishing in the pond that was nearby the barn where the cows were. And while he fished, I would be trying to pet the cows. And, there's this little child, probably in, jeans and a red striped shirt. And they're reaching out for the cow, very excited and happy and giddy. But there's a little bit of like fear, because the cow moves as it's grazing. And so the child jumps back. And that really, to me, epitomizes the sun card. Christiana Godet had talked about this in a video I saw recently about there's always a little bit of fear with the sun because, when is the foot going to drop, right? Well, things are going so well, the happiness, the joy, they're all there. What's coming next? And so it all reminds me of that little episode in my life. And so I want to recreate that on a card. And so I have already completed it to show you. And Here is what it looks like. Now, this is just a mock-up of what it might look like. I want to actually get an artist to draw this. It'll be part of the same deck with the earlier card from the Six of Cups. But let's see if we can't. Oh, that's not what I want. Do it the other way. There we go. And this one. No. Remove. Let's see. Oh, stop screen share. Share screen. I want. Oh, sorry. Technical difficulties today. I realize now what I'm doing wrong. One of the things that has been difficult is that I cannot actually do what I wanted to do today. And that was actually create the card online with you because one, I don't really have audience participation. And two, there is the issue with my monitors. I don't know what happened, but for some reason, they're not working together right. I know the problem. I don't know how to fix it. So basically, they are reading as the same size, even though they're different sizes. And so when I move my mouse on my second monitor, it goes the opposite direction of where I want to. It's not. It's proportionately in the wrong place compared to my other monitor. I guess is the right word there. But basically, here's the mock-up of the card. There's our sun, which is the same as the original card. There's the sunflowers. You'll see the cow and then the little child. Of course, it was very hard to find an image that was anything like what I wanted for a little child with that trepidation on their face. But you get the general idea. And all I did was pull in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images and create a collage to do this. And so this is a really great exercise, even if you're not publishing a tarot deck, to just create your own cards, especially for cards that you don't quite understand or cards that you find difficult. So look at the card, decide what absolutely has to be there for it to still be that tarot card, and then add things that are meaningful to you. For example, with the sun, I do really like the sun. I do really love the sunflowers, but I just couldn't with the horse and the baby and the banner. I think if I were to do this, I would do the child in a red outfit as opposed to adding the banner back. Maybe a red striped shirt and leave it at that. Some cards you want to keep as much of the original imagery as possible, and some cards you want to change completely, like the Six of Cups is one for me. I wish I'd been able to work out the kinks and that I had a bigger audience so that we could actually go through and make a card together. But why don't we talk through a card that perhaps some might have issue with or find difficult and see what we can create for it. Oh, okay. Here's one that has always bugged me, and I don't know if it's because of the person in the picture or because or what. But this is the Four of Pentacles. There's something about this image that just bugs me a little bit. And I recently saw a card where they depicted it from the back. So instead of this man sitting there like this, showing the money that he's hoarding, there was a woman. She was standing up and she was holding the money behind her back. So she was hiding it as much as hoarding it. And I thought that was beautiful. And so that was another take on it that really helped resonate. So even if I'm reading with this deck where I might not appreciate this card, I still can connect with it. And so let's talk about some things we might use here. What about a dragon and their hoard? dragon curled up around a bunch of gold and jewels. Yep. Um, it could be an animal deck. It could be a bird protecting their nest. But anything that would, or a squirrel protecting their hoard of nuts. Anytime we're trying to hold on to something, would be a really great image. And it would be fun to create that if I could work out the technology today. But I like that dragon idea. I don't know that that would work with any of the decks that I've currently got in process because none of them are really magical or mystical. They're more realistic, um, every day, than um, fantasy. Yes, there's the word fantasy. So there are some cards that I've created over time, some just opportunities to be creative, some to help understand cards that maybe are difficult, and then others are projects that I've worked on just for the fun of it. But this experience of creating cards, much like acquiring new decks, gives me the opportunity to learn new things about the cards and to evaluate my understanding of the cards. And so when I'm reading with, say, the RWS or even a PIP deck that's not necessarily Marseille, um, I can draw on the images that are in my mind from other decks that I've created, etc., to speak about those cards. I think that's one of the reasons we collect decks. One of the reasons that people create decks is we want to see things that are meaningful to us in the cards. And that's why next week I'm going to be talking about representation, why representation is important, the representation I've seen that's been really good, representation that I think is a little bit flawed. Um, some of this will be controversial, but hopefully you'll take it with which it's offered, which is love and respect. Until next time, good journeys.